Welcome back to everyone to Inspector Toolbelt Talk. Today on, we have a friend of mine, George. I'm going to say Karampoulis, but tell us the proper pronunciation of that, George.
So in English, Karampoulis is okay. Nobody would know the proper if they are not Greek. But in Greece, we M and P makes the sound of B, so it's actually Karampoulis.
Karampoulis. Did I say it all right?
Perfect.
You're just saying that because I'm hosting the show today, but we're not teasing you. It's really great to have you on, George. We've had some great conversations, especially as of late here, and I wanted to have you on and talk about a subject that's very important to me, and it's very important to you, and ultimately it's important to all of us, but sometimes I think it gets a little lost in the weeds, which is client-first marketing. But before we get into that, let's learn a little bit about you. So obviously, from what you've told us, you're from Greece originally. Where are you from? You know, what do you do? Tell us about your business.
So yes, I am from Greece, in case you didn't realize from the accent. Usually I don't hear my accent until I see a video or I hear a recording, and I'm like, oh, I hate it. But I was born there, raised there. Kalavrita is the name of the village. It's a small village, historic, because it goes against, Ottomans, Germans with wars coming with times. And then I found that I have family in Savannah, Georgia. And I wanted to meet them, so I mailed them, and they mailed me back, and they're like, actually, my daughter is getting married, my uncle said, and how about you come here? How about you visit and see, so we can meet you? So I did that, and I liked it, and I decided to move in USA. That was in 2012, after done my Greek military, so I can take it out of the way, because we have to do it in Greece from 18 years old to 30 years old. You have to do it as a man. So I moved in Savannah. I finished construction management, and at the same time, I had the mindset to say, you know what? Life is different than books. Let's just go to work for a construction company to see if I really like it. And that's when my boss said to me after a while, you know what, you're good at what you're doing, but you are annoying. Yeah. I'm like, why annoying? And he's like, well, we go to fix this wall, right? You don't have to tell me that all the rest left and right are wrong. You should become a home inspector. I'm like, what is the home inspector? I didn't even know. And he told me, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I don't have to carry stuff, sweat in the heat and everything. I just have to say what's wrong. And I'm okay. And yeah. I'm like, okay, bye. And after that, I found a friend that I had that he was an inspector. I shadowed him, and that's how I started Owl's Eye Home Inspections eventually.
Okay, so I'm really glad you told me that story, because to be honest with you, I was actually kind of wondering, how does a guy from Greece end up in Savannah, Georgia, and become a home inspector? And you're a certified master inspector, right? Like, you've been doing this for a bit.
Yes, now I am. I just became a couple months ago, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And from Savannah, Georgia, I moved with my family up to Atlanta area. So now I'm up here. Flowery Branch, I'm based. But it was hard, because you leave all your family and your friends, everything you know, a lot of things that you might think that it's normal here. For me, it was like, what? And I see things only in movies, for example. And then suddenly, boom, I'm here.
So I don't want to go too far off, but what was a weird thing that you found out when you got here in the U.S.? You're like, whoa, can you give me an example?
The fact that I'm walking out I go for a walk, and everybody's like, good morning.
Oh, they don't do that in Greece?
No, they don't. They just wave. They just nod their head, and that's it. If they know you. If they don't, they're like, we don't care.
Well, that's good. Well, it's the South. It's that Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
So and your company is Owl's Eye Home Inspections LLC, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So you're a home inspector. You've done well for yourself. You've built a good reputation. And the reason I kind of picked this subject to talk about with you is this is something that I found you talking about a lot in our conversations. Well, how does this benefit my client? What I like to do this for my client. I like to do that for my client. And you kept saying that over and over again. I'm like, this guy is very client focused. But at the same time, you have a broad marketing campaign. I love your videos that you do on Facebook. I don't know why the most recent one is you pointing at a sign over a toilet. Those are funny, engaging. They bring you in. But at the same time, you're very client focused. So if you don't mind me asking, how has being client focused helped your business? Because we kind of get lost in the weeds we talk a lot about marketing to agents. So an agent is worth, 10 inspections a year. And we put on demonstrations and shows and office presentations. But when it comes down to it, it's a very basic principle of being client focused. How has that worked out for you?
Yeah, it's funny how we remember it the times that that it's convenient for us, meaning, we don't get paid from the realtor, we get paid from the client. But we try to make the realtor happy, not the client. And that's wrong to me. My focus is on the client. He's the one that pays. He's the one that will be satisfied, will leave a review, will refer me. I will get more business from them. Yes, we know statistically, and probably you know best, the realtors are a big piece of that. They give us a lot of work. But if your clients are not happy, then your realtors eventually will not be happy. So what I try to do is that even after hours, 6, 7, 8, between 8 and 9 o'clock actually, I put my kids to bed so I don't, but 10 o'clock, after that, I am there to answer questions if my clients have those or concerns. I will pick up my phone, it's 5 minutes only. Most of the times they respect that I did answer the phone. So, I do that and they are very happy. And that's a small example of what I do for them.
It's funny too, because I mentioned that you have a good marketing campaign going on. And it's not like you say, I don't market to agents or I only market to agents. A lot of times we think it's one or the other in our industry, and it's really not. It's all encompassing. It's I market to everybody, but in your marketing campaign, you're very client first. And I think it's important to remember that because I think about it's a burger pizza joint. I don't know if they can figure out what they are down the road from me. They have a great advertising campaign. They do a lot of grassroots efforts. They market on Facebook. They have a great sign out in front, so you can't really miss the place. But their burgers are terrible. I'm not that picky, and their burgers are just terrible. So we just never went back. And people ask us, would you eat there? I'm like, you can try it if you want, but I've not had a good burger there. We have a product, and agents are looking at our clients. They're their clients too. Those clients represent more work for the agent. They represent their reputation, all of this stuff. If that client isn't happy, we are not going to get referrals. So even if we're like, hey, I only market to agents. Oh, okay, that's your gig. That's fine. But if you're not making your client happy and doing a fantastic job, you're not going to get anywhere in business because what agent is going to refer you?
Correct. And, don't forget that there are clients that they find you from your website. So despite that their realtor gave them one option or three options for inspectors, they made their research, they found me. Then when I do the inspection and give the report to them, and they say to the realtor, oh man, George was fantastic. I loved him and I will refer him to friends, family. Well, the realtor will listen to that and will be like, you know what? I will suggest George again to someone else. Despite that, originally I wasn't the one that suggested him. So yeah, what goes around comes around. They all tie together. I do several networks, open networks. I am part of a closed network, the BNI. Some people hate it, some people love it. But I get a lot of referrals from there, from realtors that I meet. But in the end of the day, if the client is not happy, that realtor will leave me or will not come back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just the important part of it. Now, a lot of times home inspectors will say things like, my client was happy with me, but that agent was mad. To me, that tends to be the rarer occurrence. I've had that happen. I can think of one experience where an agent was just, I don't know, not happy with something in life, just completely livid with me. My clients were happy, and I couldn't figure it out. But 99% of the time, agents have come to me and said, I really wouldn't refer you otherwise, but my clients love you. And I'm like, thank you, I think. Kind of like your boss telling you, you're annoying. It's like, I think that was a compliment.
Yeah.
But
So yes, and that's you've said it in another podcast, and I totally agree with that. We don't fire enough of realtors. No, as you said, it's very rare that you will have that situation. But if I find a realtor that he's just unhappy with his life, or he's unhappy because I said something that I observed, that's why I'm there, to observe and report. I'm sorry, I can't do anything to change it. And if that's the case, let's not work together again and we will both be happy.
yeah, and that's the point. So I don't think anybody would disagree with us saying that if you have a happy client, most of the time you're going to have a happy agent. But if you don't mind me asking, I think it comes down to customer experience. So you had mentioned before, good customer service, being available for your clients, that always helps. But what are some hardline things that you do to make not just your customers' time with you enjoyable, but their customer experience overall to be very good? What are some things that you do in particular?
Well, first of all, I think that it all goes down to communication. From the time that you pick up the phone and they don't know your face or you don't know their face, to explain what you do, how you do it, why you do it well, like you said on the CMI, like that. What does that mean? I have experience. I have my hands on houses, and I know what I'm telling you. And then to the point that when I arrange the appointment, I always put a buffer of 30 minutes, something like that I leave in the end so I can explain to them not only the findings, but how the report will be. So they won't be scared when they see red and orange arrows everywhere. To explain that, hey, pay attention to the words, and this is what we do. This is major, this is minor. I'm telling you that this exists, not because it's something to be terrified, but the opposite. To know that it's okay. For the age of the house, you're good, you're safe. Just keep an eye every year. Something like that.
So I think that's a beautiful point that you just made, and I think that's something that we could take home. Leaving extra time, actually physically budgeting it into our inspection. We know that's a 2.5-hour house that we're going to inspect, so we plan on 3 hours. Have that extra half hour. I think that's beautiful because sometimes we all like to think that we're great communicators, but if we were to get honest answers from people, we'd probably say, well, you could do better this way or that way. So the only way to make up for our lack of good communication, which all of us are going to lack good communication to one degree or another, is time. Okay, we thought we explained it, but they're going to go home and freak out. Can we take that extra half hour? I do the same thing. I like to budget it at the end of the inspection when we're outside the house. And that is actually for the agent, because oftentimes the agent's like, I have to get to my next inspection. I have to get to my next listing appointment. So now I'm in the driveway. The client doesn't have to worry about being recorded in the house typically. Exactly. And yeah, we're just talking. I said, I budgeted an extra 25 minutes. What questions do you have? Most of the time they'd say none, but some people are like, wow, okay, yeah, I have a list. That's awesome.
See, Exactly, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but
No.
even that part that the clients are recorded, because nowadays we have all the cameras in the house. I explain to them, hey, how about we step out and we talk?
Hmm.
There are cameras. I want you to feel comfortable without having anyone listening to what we say. At that time, I explain with simple words. You can say for eye joist, beams, and things like that, but people that buy houses sometimes don't know these words, even the simple ones. So what you try to explain is that, okay, the floor, you have the subfloor, the support. You try to explain that's where we saw the discoloration, the deterioration, something that the moisture. So you try to explain in person with simple words, and then when they see the report with the proper words, they are not surprised or like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's good bedside manner. I remember one time when I was like 19, I had there's this part of my ear around the eardrum that became perforated.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor used all these big words. He's like, you have a perforated something. And then finally I'm just like, I don't know what that means. He goes, you have a hole in your eardrum. I'm like, thank you. Okay, that's all I needed to know. I didn't need to know which part of my eardrum it was.
English.
Yeah. Or Greek, depending on your client. I don't know.
Am I allowed to say a small parenthesis here, a small story about that?
I would love to hear it.
Everybody here have that expression of "it's all Greek to me." When I first came, that was like, wait, what? Is he making fun of me now? Or he tries to say something that I don't understand? If it was Greek to him, then we would speak in the same language. We're okay, we understand each other. Because when I first moved in the US, I couldn't speak as good of English. That was funny. And then I'm like, oh, so that's the expression, guy.
Well, I kind of wondered if people as you were talking, if people in Greece say it's all English to me,
Well, actually, we say it's all Chinese to me. Because we probably consider that as a hard language.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's just because you guys have a Cyrillic alphabet, right? So,
yes. So, from changing completely the alphabets, like the English is kind of okay for us, but for the Chinese or the Asian languages in general are completely different alphabet to us. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have the Greek alphabet, which is completely foreign to us, So I guess that's probably where the expression comes from. Yeah. But, it makes a good point for people who we're talking to. I have a tendency to shake my head yes and listen when people are saying things that I don't understand as I'm trying to process it. And then they're usually gone and walking away by the time I have a question. So explaining things to people, why we're on the phone when they're talking to us, why we're on site and having that extra time at the end, that's extremely important.
Yes.
Do you have a driveway speech that you do beforehand? Like when they first show up, do you give them a little bit of tidbits here and there of what you're going to do?
Well, I tell them how I will do my inspection. I usually say, I will start from the roof, go to the exterior, attic, garage, go from upper floor to basement, so I can see if everything is okay with running water and stuff like that. So I explain the process to them, but then I make sure also to tell them, hey, the inspection is like a puzzle that you put together all the pieces. So I will be able to address all your concerns or your questions in the very end, so I can know what's what. Because I might see something on the exterior wall and call you and be like, hey, you have that, but I haven't seen the interior yet. So I haven't seen all the surroundings. So I tell them that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I call a driveway speech. I've seen inspectors that I've trained where people walk up and they just start inspecting with them. People are walking in cold. They've probably only seen the house maybe once or twice. They have questions. They don't know what you're doing. And it's not a good experience. It's kind of like you walk into that restaurant that I just told you about. Nobody shows you to your table. They just say, yeah, sit wherever you want. You don't know. Nobody's taking your drink order. It's part of the
Exactly.
experience. Yeah, they want to feel comfortable in there.
See how many times you go to a restaurant and you say, "Hey, what's your most famous dish?" Or "What do you prefer, this burger or that burger?" It's not that you haven't eaten that burger before in another restaurant, but you want to know in that restaurant. Well, that's kind of the driveway speech. It's like, this is what I do.
Yeah. Now I really, really want a burger, though.
I'm with you.
I'm getting kind of hungry. But I guess there's two parts to it, too. Sometimes we worry about making the client scared or upset, or the agent upset, by bringing out a defect. And especially new inspectors, I hear them say that all the time. Guys who are grizzled and older, we're just kind of like, all right, they're going to have to deal with it. We have other agents. But new guys, they worry so much about that. But it's surprising because I've had agents complain about home inspectors, not because they were alarmist, but because their client moved in and it was a bigger deal than the home inspector was making it out to be. They're like, the home inspector was trying to make him feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. He should have just been like, this is a problem. Let's get this checked out. Rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak.
And what's even worse, to continue with what you're saying, is that I've heard the realtor saying that when they come to me for, so I can do an inspection, they say, my previous inspector actually was calling all the little things, but he never found the big things that we saw. So you have that side too. I think that the perfect balance is, there is a fine line. You have to step on that line. Pretty much take out all of your emotions and say, like a robot, pretty much, this is what I see, this is what I report. Not exactly like a robot, like you want to sympathize, you want to make them feel comfortable with everything, but don't freak them out either. Just walk in that fine line of, hey, this is the problem. And you know what? For you, I say that a lot to my clients. For you, might not be a problem. You might have the budget to fix that. That's not for me to say or to know. If you have the budget, that might be fine. But for someone else, for another client, this could be a major. So the deal is that, hey, you have that hole there, you want to fix it, you don't want, it's okay, you walk away.
Yeah, I heard a home inspector, just to talk to your point there, he once said, don't make assumptions for your client. Because a lot of times we may be thinking, oh, we're helping them out by making a big deal about this or not making a big deal about that, when you never know. Maybe they don't care about the electrical system because his brother's an electrician. They were planning on ripping that all out anyways. Or on the converse side of things, we may assume, oh, yeah, well, this isn't a big deal because, I'd be fine with this in my home, but maybe they're not. So we can't make assumptions either way about them. Having a good customer experience, being client first, would dictate that we actually take the time to, as much as we can, say, hey, how do you feel about this defect that I just put? Not every little thing, like a handle and doorknob, but hey, this foundation wall. What are your thoughts on it? We may still mark it the same. We're not going to change our rating on it, so to speak, but we can get a better understanding, so we can give them a better customer experience. They may be freaking out about it and not saying anything. Well, okay, let's talk this through. This will be some money, but it's fixable. Oh, it is fixable. I've had so many clients say that. Oh, it is? I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's got to get fixed.
I totally agree with you. Sometimes some of the clients are contractors, some they are engineers, some they might not have knowledge about anything. So you can't, that by asking questions, Socrates said, by asking the right questions, you find the truth. So the right question there is like, yeah, how do you feel about that? Tell me how you feel so I can, and then they start telling you details that you didn't know that you will hear, but it helps.
I think that's awesome that you quoted Socrates. I often try to quote him, but it's usually from somebody else, and I always misquote Socrates.
Well, that's from him.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I trust you on that one. I think you would know. But if you don't mind me asking, all of this seems very basic to a lot of us, but to new guys, I think they worry too much about agents. And, I got mostly with our podcast here, we'll get like thank you emails and guys will call me thanking me. But once in a blue moon, I had this one guy get really upset because he said our industry is falling apart because it's becoming too agent focused. Do you think that that's happening to our industry a little bit? That it becomes too agent focused, or do you think that's not really an issue?
No, I think that it is an issue. I agree on that. First of all, you had Nick Gromyko saying that he's trying to change that, and I really hope he will. But yeah, unfortunately, even as inspectors, like I hear your podcast and you talk with your competitors. You work kind of together. Of if you're busy, you send them, you refer to them, and the other way around. Where I am, I tried that. I still haven't found someone to do that. I recently had a home inspector actually last week that he sent me an email and he's like, "Hey, I'm newer. I have hard time. I'm looking to see if you're hiring." I'm not right now, but I had a call with him. I talked to him. I point to him some things to understand and to know. So I try to be helpful, in other words. And to go back to your question, your point is that for myself, I found that when I knocked some doors in the beginning in this area, when I moved to Atlanta area, they didn't answer. They answered, but they didn't follow up. And all I needed is actually to give them business. When I am out of town and when I'm busy, to give them business and trust them that they won't steal the realtor. So yes, we fight about the realtors, but to wrap up, I think that we should move along and work together more instead of fighting who is better in front of the realtor's eyes.
Yeah, I think it's I picture us kind of like a bunch of people in fishing boats in overfished waters. Everybody's trying to get all the fish that are there, and they're throwing their nets in. So a guy comes along and says, "Hey, you want to work together?" If that's not happened in your area before, and that's how it kind of started with me when I was working with other home inspectors when I first started out, nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody cared. And then you find the few gems that are out there that you can work with. But I do think we're becoming too agent focused as an industry sometimes. It is the low-lying fruit, I think, is the problem of it. But just because it's the low-lying fruit, you can get 10 clients a year from your average real estate agent. That doesn't mean that we can't be client first in our marketing when we work with our clients. So let's get back to that subject, because I just wanted to address that, because I do think it's a problem in our industry.
And to add, actually, the realtor will be satisfied because the clients were satisfied, and the realtor is working in an office. Guess what? Word of mouth. He will say to the other realtors, "Hey, I have that good inspector, actually."
Yeah, and then after they have one bad inspection, they may be like, "Oh, I don't refer George." They have a bad inspection, and with not a good customer experience for their client, they're going to come back and say, "Okay, where's George's number again?" Yeah. It's business 101. You have to have a good burger. Doesn't matter how great your advertising is. And we also don't want to assume that every agent is going to be, just trying to make the deal. The agents that I work with are awesome. I had one guy just tell me outright, "I know that I'm going to lose deals because you're thorough. I want you to find that because I want to build my business." And he is doing really well. I met him probably 15 years ago. That's his mentality. We still work with him to this day. And he's one of the highest producing agents in our area. So it does work being client focused. It doesn't need to be one or the other. You can work with good agents, keep them happy by keeping their clients happy, and it really does work out well. So you've talked to us about beginning, talking to the client on the phone when you're scheduling the inspection. You're a little bit of a driveway speech, even though you may not call it that. Working with them using plain language on site. And I really love that point about scheduling extra time with them, because I've done that. Most people don't take me up on it. Just the offer of it, most people go, that is really sweet of you. I really have to go, but wow, that's awesome of you. It's just part of the experience. Most people don't take me up on it. What about afterwards, like sending the report, doing follow-ups with the client to check with them, things like that?
Always. When the next day, actually, I always send a text and I say, hey, by now you have reviewed the report. If you have any questions, any concerns, please let me know. I'll be there for you. And most likely they send me a text back and say, no, everything is okay. Or if they have something, then I give them the opportunity to do so, to ask. And about a week later, actually, I try to send also an email. I'm like, hey, how about that property? Are you moving forward with that? Or you end up finding something else? This way, if they are finding something else, they can still remember and consider me. And if they are staying with that property, then they say, oh, you look at this. So the inspector actually really cares and he asks. And I do.
Yeah, very nice. So, I mean, that is important. I personally automate those messages, but people appreciate that. And you know what's funny is they're not done with that transaction and they're not done with that agent. So a lot of times they're even getting those messages while they're with the agent. So they'll even say to the agent, oh, the home inspector emailed me yesterday, or they text messaged me to see if I had any other questions after they gave me time on site. And it really does make for a great experience. It's kind of like the waitress at that restaurant bringing you mints at the end.
Yes.
It's like 3 cents of, it's like 30 cents of mints, but you're like, oh, that was nice. Thank you. You know, or draw a smiley face on your receipt, you know?
See,
Stuff
to
like
your
that.
example, if you have the meat cooked well in the burger, then you can experiment of adding products in the burger, make the mushroom, the Swiss cheese, the things like that. And then in the end, you also give those mints or some fruit or something. And that little thing is what makes the difference.
Yeah, it makes the whole experience work out well. So George, I gotta throw this in there because I automate my messages and everything through Inspector Toolbelt, our software. you're a Inspector Toolbelt software user, right?
Yes, sir. And actually, I'd like to say, well, I don't want to interrupt you. Do you want to say something before I start again?
No, please. Yeah, this is your show.
So, no, I used to be on the HomeGates software, and actually, that's part of making the clients happy, right? The report is the main thing that makes them happy or not. So I used to be on HomeGates, and granted, I had bought when it was free for lifetime, so that means no updates, no nothing. But from that, I switched to Inspector Toolbelt, and you know that I ask a lot of questions.
I love it though. Yeah, I love it though.
But because when I launch it and when I start using it, I want to be sure that I will not lose quality and value in my report for my clients. Because if you see all of my reviews, one of the things that they say is that the report is perfect. So I didn't want to mess up that. Mm-hmm. And actually, I didn't believe it when I was listening on Facebook or podcasts, but wow, it saves you time.
That's awesome.
Later, when you go to the office, though, you spend, 30 minutes to put the drone pictures, if you have, and then look it up, put it all together, make sure that everything is okay, the way that you want it, and send it. And that was it. I mean, I was like 30 minutes versus 4 to 6 hours that I was spending in the office.
Oh, wow.
I'm ashamed to say that I was spending this much time. And now I have time either for a second, third, even fourth inspection in a day, or if I don't have, I have time for my family. And bottom line, that's what we work for the family, and have time and the ability with the money to go places and do things.
So I really appreciate you saying that. You told me that before, and you actually said, Ian, can you give me an opening, and I'll put you a plug in there? Because, I don't want to make the whole podcast about our software, which I'm very proud of and I love. But if I heard you right, basically once you learned how to use it after the first few inspections, you're saving hours and hours every inspection, which that just makes my heart glad, because not only does it apply to this podcast of, now you can give your customers better service. You have time for questions and answers, but also your family. That's extremely important.
And I will say that, first of all, yes, you didn't want to talk about this, about your software.
I'm not a self-plugger.
but I needed to, because it's part of my clients first. Because when I actually started the new software, I said to them, hey, I didn't hide it. I said, I'm actually trying a new software. So don't be scared, like whatever I see, it will be reported. I don't know how well it will come back to you, but you will have all the information. And everybody's like, oh, that's fine, don't worry. All of the clients, I was surprised. And then I had the strength to ask feedback. And I said, hey, can you actually tell me how was the whole process with this software, and if you liked from the emails that you got to the agreement to the after emails, like after the report and the report itself, give me feedback. And all of my clients actually gave me feedback, and that's how I had some questions, and then you even improved some stuff, and now I'm good.
Nice. Well, that makes me happy that ultimately your clients were happy with it, because that's really what matters to us. Sometimes we have to be judicious how we adjust our software, because we actually do client-based testing. Like, I'll send it to people and say, home inspector sent you this, what would you think? So home inspectors will sometimes ask for a feature, I need this to happen, but the clients don't like it. Like, if every client's like, yeah, no, I don't know what that is, it made it confusing, I don't like it, agents tell us the same thing, we may not put that feature in that inspectors may be requesting, because we want to make your product work for your clients. And that's really what we're working at.
And in the end, you have to, as you give so many information to them, you have to ask the questions too. It's okay to get the feedback, and it's okay to get a bad feedback. That's how you can improve it.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, going to that real meat of the client first mentality, you had mentioned that you are available for phone calls, for all the stuff with your clients. Where do you draw the line between client first and your life, though? Because you're a family man. I mean, that's important.
I am. Thankfully, I have my wife understanding that, hey, sometimes actually I might need to work even close to holidays and things like that. But I made a promise that I will draw the line that, first of all, 3 weeks to a month, actually a year, and that will be very weird to you, I think. But as a one-man show, I still 3 weeks to a month take off and go either to Greece or to somewhere, because we have made a promise with my wife that once a year we'll travel somewhere. Even if it is in New York, something that we will see together. That's the point, to create memories. So that's where I draw the line. Those 3 weeks, 1 month, or a year, yeah, I will arrange for the next month, but I'm not doing anything. I'm there for my family. And I try for holidays or some weekends. I book weekends in the very end, if it has to be done in the weekend. And if it is from a realtor that uses me all the time, I'm like, okay, you know what? Yes, I'll do it. So, but in general, I have weekends of as much as I can.
So I wanted to bring that out because you've told me that before, and I think that's beautiful because so many times we're like, well, I want to be client focused. So we oftentimes open the door too wide into our lives. And people don't have the limits, unfortunately, when it comes to that. I've had people call me all hours of the night and say, you didn't answer. I'm like, yeah, it's like 11:30 at night. And then they're
Right.
calling 6:30 in the morning. If we open the door too wide, it's too much. We have our families. We're working for our families. And I like that. You set limits. And I think that's kind of a good quality of yours. You said at the end of the inspection, I leave 30 minutes. So you allot things, you carve out things, and that's where your schedule is. So for you, it's those 3 to 4 weeks a year. Those are mine. Those are my family's. Nobody touches that. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes, and thankfully, not only clients, but even the realtors that are using me a lot, they respect that. They might not like it when they have a house there because they have to find someone else, but they respect it and they come back to me. They don't just delete me.
Yeah, and there's lots of different ways we could cut that pie. You know, for me, I ended up cutting out weekend inspections many, many years ago, and I wouldn't do weekend inspections. Did it affect my bottom line? Yeah, to be perfectly frank, but that was the way I carved out those 4 weeks that you're talking about. You carve out an entire month. That's an awesome thing. That's incredible. Some guys, you know what? Maybe it's something else. However you carve it out, make sure you carve out time for your family. Client first doesn't mean sacrificing something that isn't yours, which is your time, your family's time with you.
Actually, someone asked recently on the Facebook page about that, and he had problem managing all these clients while his wife was getting mad with him. I'm sorry, but I love my Owl's Eye home inspections. I love my company. It's my baby, but I prefer my family than work. But with that being said, I have the excuse to say, hey, I'm there most of the holidays, I'm there most of the weekends if you ask me to, but as a last resort, of course, but that month is my month. End of story.
Nice. So I think that's a nice ending to client-focused marketing, back to basics. That's really what it is, back to basics. You make a burger, make a great burger. We're inspectors. Let's do a great inspection and do right by our clients, but we don't need to open the door so wide that it takes something that doesn't belong to us to give, which is our family's time with us. But George, I had a blast with you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for being on the podcast and dropping these gems.
Likewise, I had a blast too. Thank you for inviting me. And I hope that you didn't lose audience because of my accent.
No, I think we gained some. But I want to know, how do you say listen in next time to Inspector Toolbelt in Greek?
Listen and say it again. Let me hear.
You can say it however you want. Take us out in Greek.
Να μας ακούσετε ξανά στο επόμενο Inspector Toolbelt.
All I understood was Inspector Toolbelt, and that was awesome. Thanks a lot, George. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Bye.